My dear garden-loving friends, I need to tell you something that might surprise you. For years, growers have been pushing us toward those big, expensive statement plants, telling us that's where the real profit lives. But here's what they don't want you to know. One operation produces 200,000 hanging baskets annually, and their most profitable plant isn't a rare exotic. It's a humble 10-inch basket you've probably walked past 100 times. Wave petunias. These simple beauties cost just 25 cents per plug to start, yet they drive serious profit at scale. Before you rush out to grow thousands of baskets, though, we need to talk about why most growers who try this approach end up exhausted and broke. Have you ever wondered why so many small growers work themselves to exhaustion yet barely break even? You see them at farmers markets every weekend, tables loaded with beautiful hanging baskets, and you think they must be doing well. The common wisdom says that selling thousands of hanging baskets is the proven path to gardening income. It sounds perfect for retirement, right? Steady work, predictable sales, and you get to spend your days surrounded by flowers. But here's what nobody tells you about those 10-inch baskets. They require constant production cycles that never really stop. You're always planning the next batch, always monitoring growth stages, always racing against the calendar. The watering schedule alone becomes a full-time job during peak season. Those baskets dry out faster than you'd think, and missing even one watering session on a hot day can cost you hundreds of dollars in damaged inventory. Then there's the timing pressure, what growers call residency time and ready window. You need your baskets ready when customers want them, not a week early or a week late. Too early and you're storing them, watching them grow past their prime while your greenhouse space fills up. Too late and you've missed the selling window entirely. That storage space costs money whether you're using it efficiently or not. Every square foot dedicated to holding finished baskets is space you can't use for the next production cycle. Walk you through what this looks like in practice. You're managing hundreds of baskets at different stages. Some need transplanting, some need pinching back, others are ready for market. Your mornings start at dawn, checking moisture levels, adjusting irrigation systems, scouting for pests. By afternoon, you're loading delivery vehicles or setting up market displays. Your back aches from lifting, your hands are raw from constant handling, and you're watching weather forecasts like your income depends on it, because it does. Now let's talk about the math that most growers never calculate honestly. You're tracking the cost of plugs, potting mix, containers, and fertilizer. Those numbers are easy to see. But what about your time? What about the utilities running your greenhouse? What about the plants that don't sell, the ones that got leggy or developed problems, the baskets that sat too long and lost their appeal? These scraps, the unsellable inventory, represent pure loss. When you factor in those hidden costs, suddenly those thousands of units aren't generating the profit you thought they were. You're busy, you're working hard, but you're not necessarily making money. The real trap is treating all volume equally. We assume that more units automatically means more profit, but that's only true if you're producing the right volume efficiently. There's a world of difference between busy work and profitable work. Busy work keeps you moving all day, gives you the satisfaction of checking tasks off a list, makes you feel productive. Profitable work actually puts money in your pocket after all expenses are covered. Many growers stay stuck in this cycle because they don't step back and ask the hard questions. They keep producing the same way year after year, assuming that working harder will eventually pay off. They add more varieties, expand their greenhouse space, push for higher unit counts. But if the underlying model isn't profitable, scaling up just means you're losing money faster while exhausting yourself in the process. Here's what I want you to understand. Profitable work minimizes the risk of scraps and maximizes your ready window, matching production to predictable sales demand. Volume can absolutely work and work beautifully, but only when you choose plants that cooperate with efficient production instead of fighting against it. The secret isn't producing more units. The secret is producing the right units, the kind that grow reliably, sell consistently, and don't demand so much from you that the profit disappears into your labor costs. What if there's actually a plant that delivers high volume without trapping you in this exhausting cycle? Wave petunias are that plant. Some plants are naturally designed for efficient, low-stress production. They practically grow themselves and sell themselves, and that's not marketing talk. That's biology working in your favor instead of against it. Now I know what you're thinking. Petunias? Really? Those common flowers everyone grows? Yes, exactly those. Here's what makes them different from everything else you might consider. They're seed-grown, not propagated from cuttings. That means no royalty headaches, no licensing fees, no complicated ordering from specialty propagators. You buy plugs for 25 cents each, and you're done. That's your starting cost locked in, simple and predictable. These petunias require minimal intervention once they're established. They fill out quickly without constant pinching and shaping. You're not spending hours training them or worrying about growth patterns. They just do their thing, spreading and blooming the way they're bred to do. They tolerate variable conditions better than most plants in their category. A cool night won't set them back. A hot afternoon won't stress them out. They handle inconsistent watering better than tender tropicals or finicky annuals that sulk if conditions season or later, and they'll still perform beautifully for your customers. Now let's contrast this with high-maintenance specialty plants. Those demand precise temperatures, often within a narrow range. You're constantly adjusting thermostats, monitoring heating costs in spring, worrying about ventilation in summer. They need constant monitoring for pests and diseases because stress makes them vulnerable. They require skilled labor or at least experienced handling. One mistake in watering, feeding, or timing can cost you the entire crop. All of these factors add hidden costs that eat away at your profit margin. Most growers overlook wave petunias because they seem too common, too ordinary. There's no prestige in growing something everyone else grows. But that ordinariness is exactly why they work so well for steady income. There's no education required to sell them. No explaining care requirements to hesitant customers, no hand-holding after the sale. Here's the psychology that matters. Consumers know these plants. They've grown them before or seen them in their neighbor's garden. They trust them to perform without drama. That trust translates directly into sales. Customers buy multiples without hesitation. They'll take home 3 or 4 baskets instead of carefully considering one expensive specialty plant. They come back next year and buy them again because the experience was positive. That consistency of historical demand is what makes this work. You're not guessing whether customers will want your product. You're producing something with proven, reliable demand year after year. That predictability minimizes your risk of unsold inventory. Sleep at night while still delivering consistent returns. It's the one that doesn't require you to be in the greenhouse at dawn and dusk every single day. It's the one that forgives your mistakes and still produces saleable inventory. It's the one that moves quickly so you're not sitting on inventory wondering if it'll sell. Wave petunias offer seed-grown simplicity, low input costs, rapid growth, and consumer familiarity. Together, these factors create a low-risk, high-velocity business model that respects your time and energy. You're not gambling on trends or hoping a specialty plant catches on in your market. But understanding why this works is one thing. Seeing the actual numbers from a real operation puts it all in perspective. Let me show you what this looks like at real scale. 200,000 baskets sold annually by Casa Verde growers, with 85% of that volume made up of 10-inch baskets. That's not a diversified product line spread thin across dozens of varieties. Wave petunias in those 10-inch baskets form the cornerstone, the foundation, the reliable income streams. They can plan labor, order supplies in bulk, and use their greenhouse space efficiently without waste. That greenhouse space efficiency matters more than most growers realize. Wave petunias grow quickly and uniformly, so they don't sit on benches for months taking up valuable real estate. This residency time, the period from plug to sale, stays short. Low residency time means the same square footage generates multiple crop cycles per season. You're earning from that space over and over instead of tying it up with slow-growing specialty items. The faster plants move through production, the more profitable that space becomes. The labor requirements stay minimal per unit. Once the plugs are transplanted, the plants largely take care of themselves. You're not constantly pinching, staking, or fussing with individual baskets. Your time goes into the basics: watering, feeding, and monitoring for problems that rarely occur with these forgiving plants. One person can manage hundreds of units without feeling overwhelmed or exhausted by the workload. Their retail price point moves inventory fast, and here's where consumer psychology works in your favor. The retail philosophy at their associated garden center, Petitti's, recognizes that the average consumer will spend a fixed amount per shopping trip. They get more bang for their buck with 3 or 4 10-inch hanging baskets than 1 or 2 12-inch baskets. This isn't about selling cheap, it's about understanding that customers feel better walking out with multiple plants instead of a single expensive item. They buy more units, spend the same total amount, and feel like they got a better deal. That perception drives repeat business and builds loyalty. Fast turnover means cash flow stays healthy and you're not financing inventory for weeks on end. They've optimized every step from plug selection to finishing. They source from reliable suppliers who deliver consistent quality. They use proven potting mixes that perform reliably without constant adjustment. Their containers are sturdy but cost-effective. Every decision removes variables that could cause problems down the line. This system runs smoothly without constant crisis management, without midnight greenhouse checks, without wondering if this batch will turn out right. This isn't about working harder, it's about working smarter by eliminating the variables that cause stress. When you choose a plant that cooperates with your lifestyle instead of demanding constant attention, everything changes. You can plan your days around living, not just around production deadlines and plant emergencies. Here's the key insight that most growers miss. High volume at moderate margins beats a few hundred high-priced specialty plants when you factor in production ease and sales consistency. Those specialty plants might look impressive on paper with their high retail prices, but what's your actual profit after accounting for the extra time, the higher failure rate, the slower turnover, and the customers who admire them but walk away without buying? This volume approach allows growers to plan vacations. You can step away for a few days without worrying that everything will fall apart. You can manage your energy levels instead of pushing through exhaustion because a demanding crop needs constant attention. You avoid the burnout that comes from chasing every new plant trend, trying to stay ahead of the market by growing whatever Instagram says is hot this season. Successful growers select plants with proven demand, simple propagation requirements, and forgiving production characteristics. Then they build efficient systems around those plants rather than fighting against plant biology. They work with nature instead of constantly battling to keep finicky varieties alive and saleable. But volume isn't the only path to serious profit in this business. There's a completely different path that generated over $111,000 from a single plant variety. One plant, 1 year, 6 figures in revenue. This isn't about selling thousands of units. This is about creating something so impressive that customers willingly pay premium prices. Plant Delights. Nursery built this success around Colocasia Thailand giant, a show-stopping perennial that commands attention the moment people see it. This plant grows quickly to up to 9 feet tall with individual leaves that grow in excess of 5 feet long and 4 feet wide. These aren't your typical garden center offerings. These are statement plants, conversation starters, the kind of specimens that transform a garden from ordinary to extraordinary. They focus on large, mature plants that deliver immediate impact instead of asking customers to wait years for results. The market response proved immediate and strong. In 2004, the nursery sold 560 of these plants at $20 retail and believed they could have sold 500 more. That initial demand established this wasn't a niche curiosity. Gardeners wanted these dramatic specimens and were willing to pay for them. The price eventually peaked at $25 as demand continued strong, though the current price for a 4-inch pot has settled at $16 as the market matured and supply increased. Here's what matters about size and value. Consumers perceive larger plants as more mature, more established, and worth significantly more money. The actual growing cost difference between a small plant and a large one is often modest. You're using more potting mix and a bigger container, yes, but the time investment isn't dramatically different. A large plant doesn't require 10 times the work of a small one. It just requires patience and space. That 9-foot-tall specimen became a profit phenomenon. Not through volume, not through constant production cycles, but through creating an experience that gardeners couldn't resist. When someone sees a plant that tall, that dramatic, that fully developed, something shifts in their perception of value. They're not buying a plant anymore. They're buying instant transformation for their garden. They're buying the wow factor that would take years to achieve from a starter plant. This approach requires patience, space, and a different mindset than the volume model. You're not churning out thousands of units on tight schedules. You're growing fewer plants to larger sizes, creating high-value inventory that moves at premium prices. Your greenhouse or growing area becomes more like a showroom than a production facility. Each plant gets the space it needs to reach impressive proportions. The math works differently, but it still works. Fewer transactions at higher margins can equal or exceed volume profits. You're selling maybe dozens of plants instead of thousands, but each sale generates substantial revenue. The key factors are low mortality and reliable demand from collectors and serious gardeners. These plants don't fail easily once established. They're not fragile annuals that die if conditions aren't perfect. They're robust perennials that grow stronger year after year. This model appeals to a different market segment entirely. These are gardeners who want instant impact. They're willing to invest in mature specimens rather than waiting years for growth. They understand that time has value, and paying more for a fully developed plant makes sense when you consider the alternative. Landscape designers love these plants because they can transform a project immediately instead of installing small plants and hoping they'll fill in eventually. Many growers miss this opportunity entirely because they're focused on commodity annuals and fast turnover. They overlook the premium market for large, mature specimens. Colocasia Thailand Giant leverages size as value psychology. It commands premium prices from collectors and landscape designers seeking immediate visual impact. The dramatic scale of these plants creates an emotional response that sums which approach matches your situation, your resources, and your retirement vision. Let's build your strategy around what actually drives profit. This isn't about picking the best approach. It's about choosing the one that matches who you are and what you want from this work. Start by considering your available space honestly. Do you have greenhouse space or just outdoor growing areas? How many square feet can you dedicate to production without turning your property into a commercial operation? Wave petunias need protected space for early season production. Large specimens like Colocasia need room to spread and grow tall. Your space determines your capacity, and your capacity should match your energy level, not exceed it. Speaking of energy, be realistic about your physical capabilities. Volume production means lifting, moving, watering multiple times daily during peak season. Growing large specimens means handling heavy containers and managing tall plants. Neither approach should leave you exhausted or in pain. This is retirement income, not a second career that wears you down. Think about startup capital too. Volume requires more upfront investment in plugs, containers, and potting mix because you're producing many units. The premium approach needs fewer plants but larger containers and more patience while they mature. Both paths need funding, just allocated differently. Here's what many successful retirees do, and it works beautifully. They build a core of reliable, easy production plants like wave petunias for consistent cash flow. That steady income covers expenses and provides financial predictability. Then they add a few specialty high-value plants for premium sales. Those occasional big-ticket transactions become bonus income, the extra that funds vacations or special purchases. Start small with either strategy. Test market demand in your area before committing thousands of dollars to production. Visit local garden centers and farmers markets. Talk to other vendors. See what sells quickly and what sits. Build relationships with garden center owners who might become steady customers. These connections matter more than anything else when you're starting out. Consider whether you'll grow in a greenhouse or outdoors. Greenhouses extend your season and protect crops but cost money to heat and maintain. Outdoor growing limits you to your local climate but keeps overhead low. Your climate determines which plants work best. Wave petunias thrive almost everywhere. Colocasia needs warmth and won't survive cold winters outdoors. Access to wholesale suppliers matters too. Can you source quality plugs reliably? Are there local suppliers, or will you pay shipping costs that eat into margins? These practical details determine profitability more than plant selection alone. Now here's what really determines success. Profitability comes down to controlling 4 key variables. First, your input costs, what you pay for plugs, containers, soil, and fertilizer. Keep these predictable and reasonable. Second, your production yields, how many saleable plants you get from each batch you start. High mortality kills profit fast. Third, residency time, how long plants occupy your growing space. Shorter residency means you can cycle more crops through the same square footage. Fourth, the ready window, how long plants stay in prime selling condition. A longer ready window gives you flexibility and reduces waste from plants that pass their peak before selling. These 4 factors matter more than which specific plant you choose. Seasonal production lets you enjoy winters without plant care responsibilities. Year-round production provides steady income but means constant work. Choose based on how you want to spend your retirement, not just on potential profit. The initial investment worries many beginners. Start with a small trial batch, maybe 50 to 100 units. Learn the production process, test your market, and see if you enjoy the work before scaling up. The learning curve is real but manageable when you start modestly. Research local demand first. Connect with growers' cooperatives in your area. Visit wholesale nurseries and ask questions. Start with that small trial batch before committing to large-scale production. Success comes from understanding your market and matching your production to real demand, not from following generic advice about what plants are supposedly profitable. The right strategy depends entirely on your unique situation. Both approaches work when executed with focus and consistency. What matters is matching the strategy to your resources and lifestyle, then committing to it fully. If you're ready to turn your gardening passion into steady retirement income, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me which path speaks to you, the reliable volume of wave petunias or the premium appeal of statement plants like colocasia. Remember, my dear friends, the most profitable plant is the one you can grow well, sell consistently, and enjoy producing without sacrificing the peace and wellness that retirement gardening should bring.